I saw Bill try to put on a, but that wasn't gonna pass New York City. And it may have been the support upstate, but it wasn't gonna be if we do
morning. Call the personnel meeting to order. Welcome everyone here.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And ask for approval of last month's meeting. All question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Let's see. First action item is a report from City Adirondack.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I hope you all are well and enjoying this nice summer weather that we seem to be continually having. Can you hear me okay? Because I can barely hear you all.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just a couple updates. Fall enrollment is continuing to trend a little bit up compared to last year at this time. So we're pleased to see that. And that includes in housing as well as our students from our local area. So we're happy about that. Of course, we have a full month left of registration activity. And so we continue to reach out to many different student populations to re-engage them in higher education. You may have read or may not, but the college has been successful in partnering with 3 other community colleges in the capital region on a consortium grant to develop curriculum in support of what we anticipate to be the emerging cannabis workforce needs. So SUNY Adirondack will be creating curriculum for both growth and cultivation, as well as supporting business startups. As that legislation continues to evolve and some of the regulations, we'll be monitoring that closely, but we're pleased to be able to be part of this important grant and important initiative for the governor. We also just did receive additional funding to help support increased enrollment in our substance abuse counseling program. As we all know, the issue of substance abuse has been an ongoing issue, but has been exacerbated by the pandemic. And we want to put some more resources into increasing enrollment, which includes adding more of our courses in that program in an online environment to ideally reach out to more in different populations that may be in other fields right now and looking to retrain. And it'll also allow us to hire a new faculty member to also help increase that program enrollment. So those 2 grants have just come in. We've also submitted a grant to SUNY for what they call the Future Workforce Center. And this grant is specifically around training EMT personnel. I know I've been in several meetings over the years with some of you and I know with County Administrator Moore and some others that the need is obviously there to have more trained personnel in EMT. And this grant would allow us to buy the equipment that we need that would be quite expensive. So the grant would help us seed that funding and then develop the curriculum to help support the region's needs in that important area. So we're anxious to hear back on that. Other than that, those are just a couple updates I wanted to provide you, particularly in relation to the college's work in workforce development. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for President Duffy this morning? Okay. I'm very glad to hear about the EMT training and the money available. I think that's a need that's out there, and getting people trained is difficult.
Yep.
Well, that'll help.
Yep.
Everyone, I think.
Fingers crossed. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Okay, items to be discussed by Human Resource Director Jackie Figueroa. We have the report of vacancies filled and the review of the separation report. I see Jackie up there. Yep. Okay. Jackie, you have anything like to share with us today?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions if anybody has any questions about those reports.
Okay, any questions for Jackie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is referrals from the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, chaired by Supervisor Jirashi. And A is a request to amend Resolution 265 of 2022 to increase the salary of the administrative secretary position from a base annual salary of $44,913, which is a grade 8, to $48,366, grade 8, step 3, to reflect the experience level of the employee position, effective and retroactive to the June 27th, 2022 start date of the employee. Someone care to bring that forward? Moved by Supervisor Frazier and seconded by Supervisor Runyon. Any discussion? Hearing, yes, Supervisor Bramer.
I'm on criminal justice, but I don't remember this one coming through. Why are we doing this in the middle of the year when she's been here for 3 years?
This was an error in the way the resolution was written. The request that came through the Criminal Justice Committee, it came through probably 2 months ago, had the increment that the employee was going to get, and then we accidentally put based on the resolution. So it passed through the committee with that increment, but the resolution was in error.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 3A is carried. 3B is Public Defender's Office. Gregory Canali, Public Defender, and it's a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to decrease the salary of the 8th Assistant Public Defender from $74,089 to $71,988, effective August 22nd, 2022, and to fill the position at the lower salary.
Make the motion.
Introduced by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Runyon. Discussion on 3B. Yes.
Just a question, if we do non-union adjustments, the adjustment to this position will be on revised salary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question on 3B. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 3C is the Sheriff's Office, Jim LaFar, our sheriff, and it's a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill the new positions of Patrol Officer 71, 72, and 73, each at a base salary of $45,854. Introduced by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Discussion. Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. Has there been any further clarification about how these officers are going to be positioned in the buildings around the municipal center, hours?
I think the hours is a work in progress. As far as positioning, I think there's one at Human Services Building, one by DMV, and I believe one by probation.
And so then the plan is for them to stand at the door?
I don't know.
I got the sense from speaking with the sheriff as I was prepping the resolution that it's really as him and his office deem appropriate and necessary for the security of the building. So I didn't get the sense that the officer would stand there for 8 hours straight, but is responsible for security of the building, which is more than just the door. And I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn because the sheriff is not here, but I got the sense that to a good portion, it would be the needs as identified by the sheriff and his staff for each of the two buildings.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Is there going to be any opportunity for us as the Board of Supervisors to request when we have needs, like the night meetings, the weekends? Or are we
I would think so.
simply going to hope that the sheriff helps us out when we ask?
Are we going to ask or tell him?
That's what I would like to tell him.
You know, that's what you're asking me, right?
The sheriff's never said no whenever I've asked in the past, so I would expect that that would continue.
I understand that. May I, Chair?
Yes.
I understand. I would like it, though, that somewhere in the resolution that says that these three officers are here to serve the municipal center and our campus, and that if the Board of Supervisors asks, they will be provided at certain, maybe just things like our night meeting, 1 or 2 a year. Right now, we only have 1. And the foreclosure auction, and maybe there's 1 or 2 other things that we put in there and say, yes, they will cover those things.
I'm not speaking for the sheriff, but practically I can see the difficulty being is that these positions are designed, and I know the county administrators already broached the topic with the departments of consolidating hours so that they're not spread over more than an 8-hour time frame, so that we have coverage while these buildings are open at both buildings. And that is still a work in process, is my understanding. So it would be impossible to have coverage for this building within the parameters of regular time for 3 officers and times outside of those regular office hours. So my suggestion is that the board would have to request or demand whatever position, however the board wants to take that. And the sheriff would have to find the manpower or woman power to cover those additional hours beyond the 40 hours that the resolution and these 3 positions provide. Because they can't do an 8-hour shift and then have a 3-hour board meeting or less in the evening or a Saturday foreclosure. But I would think if there's a need, the board or the supervisors or the committee chair should communicate that either through the county administrator or directly to the sheriff.
Yes, Chairman Garrity.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this kind of micromanaging what we're trying to accomplish? Because we gotta rely on the sheriff to give us coverage. I've never been refused coverage in my community for any event, or, as long as they can work it out. And I think we ought to allow them the latitude of making sure that he meets the needs of, I guess I don't understand the request. And I've never had to have an officer at one of my board meetings, but I'm sure if I needed one, there would be one there. So I think we ought to let the sheriff manage these people in the best way. And if we have a request, if we see a problem, obviously we can sit down and talk about it. But to try to put every detail in a resolution, I don't think it's productive.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, if we're creating these positions and then filling them with control officers, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to take some time. This is not something that's going to happen instantaneously. I don't believe. To hire new people, they have to be sent off to school. There's a process for creating a law enforcement officer. Transfer, if possible, the transfer could come in that was already. So it's going to take some time. This is not something that it's just going to happen overnight. I'll stand corrected on that. But if we're creating a position and filling it, that tells me that adding to the organizational structure, and that we're going to be interviewing and obtaining applicants. And once you have the applicants, then they have to offer training and take a little time. How much time? That would be I think that's an important conversation. Going forward, maybe more important than exactly how he applies them is, what does he envision as the beginning to end timeline? I don't know if he's going to be moving existing people to place temporarily, if they're by overtime, I'm not sure.
Supervisor Bramer.
I think that the sheriff already indicated that he was going to use experienced officers for these positions. He said he was not going to use brand new people for these positions at the municipal center. He indicated that people who are just coming in, I think the undersheriff said this last time, should have road patrol experience first. So I think these positions that are getting created will just be, they will be new officers who will go out on the road. The ones who are coming here to the municipal center will be experienced officers. And I understand that the need not to micromanage, but we are approving 3 new positions for a particular purpose. And I'd like to see some language in there from the Board of Supervisors. I understand that not everyone agrees with that position. Thank you, Chairman.
I don't believe we're getting rid of the people that we currently have for security. I don't think we're eliminating them positions. I think they're there and these are up beyond that. So they wouldn't necessarily have to stay in that one location all the time. I think that's the purpose of it. So they can move around, you know,
Yeah,
show presence, I guess.
moving them from one task to another task and that backfilling. So there's going to be some challenges here. Going forward. So this position.
Supervisor Wild.
Chairman, I don't want to put any restrictions on what we expect. But my sense is, pardon me, that if the sheriff needs to cover evening and off hours kind of activities, then he'll have to come back to us potentially and ask for more overtime. I think that's probably the way that we can support that.
Any other discussion on 3C? Yes, Supervisor Runyon.
Question, these 3 positions are new positions. And what we were talking about was experienced people are going to be the ones doing, so they're totally different people than these 3 people. And in Thurman, we have had to have sheriffs at our meetings many times, and they've always been there. Never had a problem getting a sheriff, so.
Anything else on 3C? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 3C is carried. 4. And this is a referral from the Human Services Committee chaired by Supervisor Driscoll, Department of Social Services. And this is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill the new position of Principal Account Clerk number 4. Grade 10, base annual salary of $40,784, and delete the position of Senior Account Clerk number 7, grade 7, base annual salary of $36,414, and that would be effective August 22nd. Introduced by Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Runyon. Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Watt.
Just another error that we had in the prior resolution.
I don't believe so.
No.
Came through committee.
Yeah.
Right, right,
Changing from a senior account clerk to a principal account clerk.
right.
The person who's assisting Julie will have ability to do more work, that they'd be doing more higher level work than they would be in the lower position. So the senior account clerk is lower than the principal.
Any other discussion on number 4? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Number 4 is carried. Number 5 is a referral from the Legislative Rules and Governmental Operations Committee, chaired by Supervisor Stroud, and it's to do with the IT department. And it's a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create and fill a new position, Computer Help Desk Tech 2 temporary. Base annual salary of $53,493, prorated to $25.72 an hour for up to $20,000, effective August 22nd. Introduced by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. 5 is carried. Number 6 is items to be discussed by the county administrator, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 6A is a discussion regarding executive recruitment services. When I announced that I was changing jobs, one of the other county administrators in the state reached out to me, a very respected county administrator from the western end of the state. Was very active in NACO and NISAC, comes highly recommended by Steve Aquario. And I was not aware of this, but he also has done executive recruitment services, particularly for governments. So he asked if I thought the board would be interested in his services. I said, well, let's ask and find out. He gave me a proposal. It was a 3-phase proposal with different options to choose from. And he and I discussed those options. Some of these services I'll continue providing to the extent that I'm asked by the board, advisory services and whatnot. Civil service and HR already does many of these services. But what we did discuss was the notion of directed targeted outreach to prospects and potential clients is something that I think would be added value here, as well as having this individual serve as a sounding board and for any questions that the board has about the process or that potential candidates have about the position. So if we go just down to those 2 services, he'd be willing to do those for $5,000.
Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
I was going to ask Jackie earlier, but I knew this was on the agenda later. Where are we with the process of putting out the bid posting, job posting, and receipt of applications?
It's posted. I looked for an update yesterday as to any applications that we've received yet. I don't yet have any applications. There may be some, but I just don't have them in my possession yet. We've posted with NACO, we've posted with NISAC, we've posted with Indeed, with the ARCC, with all of the traditional avenues that we do, plus NACO and NISAC.
Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have had the experience of working with executive recruiters from time to time, and they do provide a very valuable service, especially if it's a network of people that they can reference and speak to about a specific role. I'm in favor of this. Ryan, I didn't see the $5,000 in your bid. Are you saying that it would be just option 1?
No, it wouldn't. He didn't revise this. He provided this to me on July 6th, and we talked it over afterwards and said if the board wants to go down the road of just those 2 services that I mentioned, that he could do it for $5,000.
Myself personally, I'm thinking that the full service one would be my preference. In terms of funding, it's probably going to take us a couple of months to be able to make this happen. And when he's off the payroll, we can apply those funds towards this activity.
If you do want to move forward with a contract for any amount of money, that would be my suggestion, that you move dollars out of my salary appropriation and into the contractual line.
It is a senior leadership position for the county. Ryan is going to be difficult to replace. So having someone who knows about the roles and has done this type of recruiting before in the past, I'm all in favor of it.
Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
I'd like to understand more than what this full service option provides to us beyond what Ms. Figueroa does for our HR department, which includes things in here like handling inquiries from the candidates. Doesn't our HR department already do that? I'm more interested in them being able to help us advise us as the applicants come in, maybe outreach to particular people. I think that would be worthwhile. I don't think that they should be helping us with the things that the HR process already covers. This, in option one, being a sounding board, objective advisor, and technique source. Although number two says redrafting the job description. Are we doing that? Or is that the will of the committee to redraft the job description and put it out and start all over again? I don't think so. I don't want to do that. I guess I'm not opposed to having someone help us. I don't think we need to spend $18,000 to get some advice.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do agree that we don't want to necessarily duplicate what our HR department does. But I'm thinking that this person is a high-level recruiter who will be able to reach out to people for us. My sense, and Ryan, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm thinking that this guy probably has a lot of contacts. And from what our administrator said, he comes highly recommended. So, maybe we can structure this a little differently so we're not taking away pieces that Jackie and her team would do.
Yeah.
I don't know how we would do that.
I know Ryan said 5,000. I guess I wasn't listening closely enough to exactly what he said he would do for the 5,000.
Yeah, I went through all of those pieces that are listed in options 1, 2, and 3, and I cherry picked the ones that I thought would be most useful and most additive to what we already do. The pieces, in other words, that we either don't do or that we maybe don't do well. What I thought was most important was the ability, rather than just putting it out there and waiting for people to come to us, the ability to have somebody who knows potential candidates who might be interested in it and goes out and tries to sell the job to those individuals. I thought that was the very most valuable piece. And that's what I keyed in on. And if we were to go down that road, that he would also provide be a sounding board, if you will. Open line of communication between any supervisors who have questions or concerns, as well as candidates themselves. So those would be the two services for 5,000.
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move forward with our administrator's suggestion. Hire this individual for $5,000.
I'll second that.
With the scope of services as our administrator just described.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Moved by Supervisor Wild, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Further discussion? Yes.
Just to the human resource and to our county administrator, that I think we're prepared to allocate whatever. I'm prepared to support the allocation of any resource that helps us succeed in getting a top person. And so if they feel that this or any other support can be helpful in this regard, I think that should be our message to them, that let's take the right step forward here.
This, since our administrator is going to be gone in a couple of days.
That's a good question. Yes.
I see that that's an agenda item as well, but as far as I know, our rules of the board, our county law says that our chairperson is acting county administrator. We have a chairperson. We also have an HR department.
My phone number is 588-7497, and I'd be happy to do anything that is requested of me in this process as well.
That's very generous.
And now that the whole world has your cell phone number, I'll restrict that to the search for a new county administrator.
Well, he is going into the private sector, so everybody will have.
They'll have his phone number.
Yes, Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I had to take a phone call, but I had a chance to read this last night when it was sent to us. And in reading it, I reflected back when I was graduating from college, and a cousin of mine had suggested that I contact a professional headhunter. And I said, well, why? There's employment agencies and all that type of stuff out there. He said, yeah, but you're going to get a whole lot of additional referrals, information, and that type of stuff. And it did work. I paid a little bit more money, but it got me into the workforce a lot quicker than some of my colleagues, friends and colleagues. And it was a good investment back 40-something years ago. And it's not exactly the same thing as this, but I see a lot of parallels in that. It's an investment into getting some assistance, professional assistance, and that's taking nothing away from our human resource department here at the county.
So if I may ask, our chairman and vice chair are back there in the back of the room.
You may ask.
Gentlemen, are you prepared for helping lead this with this consultant? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, when I got the information, I asked Ryan to reach out to him and craft the first quote was a little bit too much, we fell a little bit too high. Ryan negotiated it down to this money. I think it's valuable. We want to fill the position as soon as possible. So getting professional help to find the right people would be great. The way I feel about it, I think we should move on with the modified proposal. Just spell it out a little bit clearer and then move on with it.
Yeah, and I think if, if we find it's not what we're expecting, I guess we could always entertain other services if we feel that's necessary.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I think this,
That's the unofficial message.
I think this is a good place to start. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question on the authorizing the $5,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6B gets to a piece that we just discussed, discussion regarding acting county administrator. We have a local law from 2017 that specifies that the acting county administrator is the chair of the board unless the chair of the board is unable to perform the duties. And in that case, the Board of Supervisors would have the authority to designate an acting county administrator. I also have a continuity of operations plan in the event that every department has one that establishes a succession order for their duties. My continuity plan has, of course, the chair as the number one. And I've always had the vice chair or the finance chair, more specifically, as number two. Because we have a local law from 1968 that states if the chair is unable or unwilling or to perform duties, that those duties devolve to the finance chair. So my co-op plan has always had the finance chair as number two, and then I move on to department heads. So in terms of those two, I don't think you can go wrong with either the chairman or Supervisor Leggett. I have a lot of respect for both of them. I'd be very comfortable with either of them doing the duties. So it really just comes down to, first and foremost, the chairman's decision. And depending on what that decision is, it'll come down to the board's decision.
Discussion on acting administrator.
We need a resolution.
You only do if the chairman says no.
I was gonna say, I think we need to find out what his feeling is first, don't you?
Chairman Garrity.
Yeah. as much as I think that I could do it, at this time with everything I got going on, I would like to defer to the vice chairman. I like to ask that Craig be appointed by the board to fill in for a minimum, the 60 days, if we don't find somebody before the 60 days. That's my game plan, is to defer to the vice chairman and ask that the board appoint Craig to fill in as temporary administrator. I just don't feel right now, I got a medical issue I'm dealing with, and I gotta figure out what's going on, and my mobility has been crippled here for a couple months. So that's what I'd like the board to do. I work pretty close with everybody here, and I think that's the best thing for the county, to keep moving on. And plus the fact we all have a lot of budget work to do, and that's going to take a lot of time. So that's what I'm asking, that the board would please let me defer to the vice chairman. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I'll bring that forward for consideration. If that's what's needed at this time.
Moved by Supervisor Conover to have the finance chair, Mr. Leggett, as the acting administrator for 60 days.
You can do if the board is going to pass a resolution, it doesn't have to be limited to 60 days. It could be whatever term the board decides.
Yeah, and to clarify, it's 60 days temporary if it's the chair. But if it's not the chair, then the board is going to do a resolution for who the board decides. And there's no requirement that the board limits itself to 60 days. 60 days is a temporary position that doesn't require the board to act if the chairperson is going to fill in as the acting county administrator. So just to say it again in the positive, if the committee is going to forward to the board a proposed resolution for someone other than the chairman, it does not have to limit itself to 60 days.
Never mind the 60 days. Second by Supervisor Wild. Discussion, Supervisor Bramer.
Sure, I'll bite. I love to discuss stuff like this, and this is the first I've heard of it. No one has communicated to me. Certainly the chairman has not had any phone calls to me or emails probably in a while. It's fine. I guess I haven't heard that there's some sort of personal issues. I feel for you as far as that goes. I've been very busy myself at work, and I guess my only thought is that if the chairman is unable to perform these duties, it would be my thought that he should resign as chair. And then our finance chair would become the chair and acting administrator.
Okay, that's one thought.
It is.
Yes, Supervisor Frazier.
Well, I didn't hear him say he's unable to perform his duties, and so we're asking him to step down. I guess I don't get it. I don't understand how we function that way, but that's just me. We just do strange things here, it seems like, and
Supervisor Conover.
You can take them out most anything. First, I thank Mr. Leggett, Supervisor Leggett, for stepping forward as deputy chair and finance chair, and
You need to speak into the microphone.
stepping forward as deputy chair and finance chair, and I thank him for that. And it's simply a question of some continuity while we find a county administrator, and I think that's the sum of it, and I wouldn't make more out of it than that. I would thank Mr. Leggett for the offer, and let's not forget, we have a very strong committee structure here at the county, and we also have very excellent department heads, and I think we can handle it for a couple of months, a few months while we get ourselves a county administrator. I don't see why we should turn it into anything more than that.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. You know, I haven't served in either of these roles, but my observation is the chair of the board is not a simple role. It's a busy position. Adding on top of that, the administrator role is even more work that someone would have to do. So to imply that our current chairman isn't capable of doing his job is, I think, a stretch at the very least. It's adding that additional responsibility that he's saying he's not prepared to fulfill. And I'm all in favor of moving forward with Supervisor Leggett, because I trust his ability to be able to handle this also.
Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
It is a lot of work to do, Chair and the acting and administrator. And as my colleague from Bolton gave thanks to Supervisor Leggett, I am glad that he's willing to take on this volunteer responsibility. And I do want to thank Supervisor Seaver last year for serving as chairwoman of the board and as acting administrator for weeks while our administrator was out on his paternity leave. She did an enormous amount of work during that time, during a very difficult period. It was still during the pandemic, and she had leadership around her that helped her as well, myself included. There was a lot of work to be done. And I do not want that to be lost as well, that there have been people who have stepped up and served as both chair and county administrator, as well as Supervisor Garrity himself knows full well how much work it is to do both. And he's done it before, and I again feel for the difficulties that he has right now. And I do want to also mention, while we're here in committee, that Mr. Moore has a very talented and capable person in Tammy DiLorenzo.
Very true.
And I would be perfectly fine seeing her as acting administrator as well. Of course, that wasn't up for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I will abstain for the record. Thank you.
One abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to item 6C. This is a piece that I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up before I depart. This goes back to 2019. I went through my first budget cycle in 2018, and that all, of course, includes the SUNY Adirondack budget cycle. And the concern, even from back then, was that the sponsor contribution, Warren plus Washington County, does not keep up with the peer rate for other institutions. And what that does is puts pressure on tuition. Way back then, I discussed with Chris DeBolt when he was county administrator in Washington County, the concept of looking into the formula that we use to apportion the sponsor contributions and adjusting the formula to be closer to assessed value than based on full-time student enrollment, which it currently is based on. Chris liked it. I liked it. We discussed with our respective budget officers, with Supervisor Thomas, and I believe it was Supervisor Shaw in those days, and they both liked it. And then COVID happened, and it all, we couldn't act on it because we didn't know what the financial implications of the pandemic would be. But I do think it's the right thing to do for this institution, which plays a major role in both communities, but especially in our community. And I included a fact sheet that was from an economic impact study done 5 years ago. The numbers are a little old, 5 years ago, but the concepts remain. The SUNY Adirondack, first of all, supports a lot of jobs in this county because it's located here. It's, their employees go out to lunch, they get groceries on the way home. The jobs that this impact study estimated are supported in this county were over 1,200 jobs 5 years ago. That meant 1 out of every 40 jobs that exists here in Warren County. The employees that are employed by SUNY Adirondack Back then, it was about 550 people, 93% of them work in Warren County. There are some who work at the satellite campus in Wilton, but the vast majority of those employees are coming here every day and spending their money here every day. The college itself spends money directly in the county through its vendors and the entities that it relies on to do its business day to day, including construction firms, which do the capital improvements. Many of those construction firms are located here in Warren County. Back 5 years ago, that was $1.5 million that they spent on Warren County construction firms. Alumni who stay here and work here. I have students who live here in the dorms and do all of their shopping and their expenses here. These are all advantages that Warren County has that Washington County does not necessarily have. And I agree with the supervisors in Washington County when they make that point in their debates about funding the college, that we tend to get more out of it. Our economy tends to get more out of it than theirs does. And don't get me wrong, their economy gets a whole lot out of the college, but we do have a distinct benefit in it being located here. The next page shows the issue that I was discussing earlier. The sponsor contributions for Warren and Washington County are about 12% of the budget, and the peer rate is about 15%. And all of these schools get the same treatment from the state of New York. So when our school has a lower sponsor contribution, it directly correlates to a higher tuition contribution from the students whose lives we're really trying to improve here. It puts the financial pressure onto them. So the next couple of pages there, I did it in an Excel. You can recognize usually when I do something, it's in Excel. But let me just spend a little bit of time and read down this sheet. This is the current trajectory of the sponsor contribution. The amount that you see under 2022-23, the 3.78 million, that's what was already adopted by our two boards this year. That's what will go into our operating budgets next year. And the practice has been to increase that amount by 2% every year. So I show you the next 5 years, 2% increase per year. It gets to about $4.2 million. In order for us to get out of this cycle where SUNY is really struggling and putting pressure on tuition, we need to get that number up to 5 million 5 years from now. What that also does is, and that does not get us up to 15% sponsor contribution, but it gets us higher than 12. What it also does is it allows us to leverage state dollars as well as dollars from other counties. We have a lot of students, for instance, from Saratoga County who attend a class at this college, and there's a chargeback to all the other counties, and that includes capital. So we can use the other counties' funds for capital and take that financial burden away from this county and away from Washington County. And when we increase our sponsor share, those chargeback rates also go up. So you get sort of 3 different bangs for your buck. If we were to go from a 4.2 million sponsor share up to a 5 over the course of 5 years, you're going to get more state investment along with that, and you're going to get more investment from outside counties as well. So I modeled out what it would take to get to $5 million. I don't quite get there. I get to 4.9.5. And that's by doing a steady 5.5% increase each year to the sponsor contribution. Again, that first number there, the 3,786, is what's in the budgets already for next year. And if you increase that by 5.5% per year, you get it almost up to 5 million. But increasing the sponsor contribution is not as simple as it would seem. That's, of course, because we share financial responsibility with Washington County, and we are constrained to doing what's affordable for them. If they can't afford a 5.5%, if they can only afford a 2%, we're doing a 2%. So that gets into what the formula is right now. And I put that down there. The sponsor contributions for next year, we do 57.5%. They do 42.5%. and that's based on full-time enrollees. But the reality is, these costs fall to our property taxpayers because they go into our operating budget. So the costs of providing these sponsorship payments are borne by the property taxpayers. So Chris and I were looking at it from the perspective of, because county services that are paid for by property tax dollars are apportioned according to ability to pay by property value, that maybe we take a look at moving more towards a formula that looks like property value as opposed to one that is the 57.5 to 46.5 that you see above. If you look at the very bottom of this page, these are the current equalized full values for 2022 that were used in our apportionment tables that we all looked at the end of last year in the course of the budget process. Warren County has 68.5% of the two counties' assessed value, and Washington has 31.5. So if over time, and I'm on to my next page, we were to transition the SUNY Adirondack sponsor share formula away from the student enrollee based to something that more closely resembles our two counties' taxpayers' ability to pay the bill, then we would be able to provide more equity to taxpayers in both counties. And the taxpayers in both counties would therefore be better positioned to support the college in the financial needs that the college has. So I threw together, and this is not the only way to skin the cat, but I threw together what I thought, if you left it just to me, this is what I would do. The adopted formula, as I already said, for next year is the 57.5, 42.5. I give you the next 5 years. If we were in the first year to pick up 1.4%, in the second year, we pick up another 1.4%. In the third year, we pick up 1.3%. In the fourth year, we pick up 1.3%. And in the fifth year, we pick up 1.2%. The percentages that get to 64-36 in that fifth year. That is not the property values. The property values are 68.5, 31.5. But it's a lot better than the current 51.5, 42.5. So if we do that 1.4, 1.4, 1.3, 1.3, 1.2, that gets us to $5 million 5 years from now, and that puts the college, I believe, in a much better place to do what we need to do for these students. I just don't think it's right for us to put the financial burden on the students like we're doing now, whose lives we're seeking to improve, and the students from outside this area who are trying to get to come here. We're doing that while at the same time not getting the college what it needs to grow. So this will be my best crack at doing it. And all the way down to the bottom, this represents the skin in the game that both counties would have, so to speak. Both counties are going to continue to increase their sponsor contribution under this plan. It's just that we will increase ours more percentage-wise than what Washington County does. This plan, if we did it exactly this way, would cost us an additional $2.2 million spread out over 5 years. I've gone through all the numbers with the budget officer, and we both think that we can afford this. I've modeled it out in our multi-year reporting. $2.2 million spread out over 5 years is not a lot for us, but it would do a whole lot for the college.
Questions, discussion? Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, for Ryan, is Washington County going to increase their 2%, or is this going to stay at 2% over these 5 years?
The percentage increase, it's been sort of a handshake agreement, if you will, between the two counties that we're going to do 2% per year. The college always asks for that because they know that that's what we're going to do. This is a what if scenario where if the college asked for 5.5 per year, if the college did that and we changed the formula in this manner, then the answer to the question is, yes, Washington County's contribution would go up each year, but it wouldn't be all that different of a trajectory. In fact, it'd be pretty much even Steven with the current trajectory they're on with the 2%. In other words, when they do their multi-year forecast, assuming 2% growth per year, with this formula done this way, they don't have to change their multi-year forecast. They're essentially, their increases are relatively the same.
Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
But our increases are going to be way more than 2% year to year. I
If
mean,
you,
we are going to take on, you said $2.2 million extra. They're going to take on less extra,
that's right.
way less. If, especially tracking assessed value. We certainly have places like Bolton, Hague, Horicon with much higher assessed value than places, well, I don't know, maybe Putnam is near that, but in any case, can you have on the page 3 at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th year out, we would be ending up paying 4.9 million under the 5.5%
Right.
per year increase.
Both counties combined would be paying that.
Oh, okay. What is the amount then on page 4 under the formula that is identified here?
So that is,
See a total number.
yeah, that is so you take, see our first number is 2,173,000.
Yeah.
That means next year our contribution would be 175,000 higher than that. The following year, 362
I
higher
get
than-
that, but when I added that all out, it was like 4.4 million. So we're not getting to the 5.5% increase
Yeah, yes.
that we're
we
trying
are.
to get to.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
said
we are.
5 million. No, we're trying to get to 5 million.
But this is, yeah, this
So we are getting to
represents-
5 million
yes,
combined,
Yes.
but
yes,
we're taking on the lion's share of that.
correct.
So our cost per student for Warren County students is going to go up. Do you know a dollar figure?
Yeah, so compared to the trajectory we're on right now, where we're assuming 2% a year, it'll be an additional $2.2 million. And my point is the same as the point that you're making, I think, where you have Bolton, you have Hague, you have the towns with high. So if we're going to these two counties, give the college what it needs, it makes sense to have a higher portion of that here than there, because we have a larger tax base to spread it on than they do.
I
think-
can't argue with that. It's just that it's not helping our taxpayers.
I think it will help our taxpayers because of the role that the college plays for us for workforce development. The college is a powerful tool for that, but not as powerful as it could be. And I think this will pay back over time.
Yes, Treasurer Swan.
If I may weigh in on this a little bit. First, yes, I'm in agreement that we have to do something. I just saw this proposal last night, so I can't give my blessing on this. But I will say that this year, our chargebacks, in other words, when one of our residents goes to another community college in another county, they charge back to us for half the tuition. Our chargeback this year is doubled from the previous year. So that tells me that for some reason, our residents are going to other community colleges. I don't know why. I don't know if it's tuition or classes or whatever. We're working with community college to try to figure that out. But if that trend continues, we will spend more on chargebacks than the 2.2 million over the next 5 years.
And if I could augment that, when you have outside colleges that are generous in their sponsor contribution, it jacks up the rate that we pay. So the chargeback that we pay last year is smaller than the chargeback rate that we pay this year. So and that's the point I was trying to get to earlier. If we get away from that 12% and closer to that 15%, we're increasing our bill to the counties outside of us.
Supervisor Bramer.
That's very interesting that we're paying more. I would like to know what that problem is. And I would ask that we understand that a little bit more before we go forward with this, because we may end up paying more in our chargebacks that we owe to other counties and paying the 2.2 million more and not understanding what the issue is.
I think the issue is tuition. If someone can get the same training, the same product at Hudson Valley for less tuition, then they'll go to Hudson Valley.
What are the
And-
tuition dollars we're talking about?
If you go back to that bar graph,
Well, I mean per student.
student, we can get that, but green represents us and blue represents peers, and our tuition is higher than our peers. So the same product costs more here than it does in other colleges. And that is, I think, primarily the reason why we lose people to other colleges. These are people that can't afford it in the first place.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it's about $5,400 for your.
Thank you.
I think also when community colleges were started, the concept was a third, and a third. The state would pay a third, the sponsors would pay a third, and the students would pay a third. You can see by the numbers on the paper there that that's totally skewed. Even the state's not meeting their commitment or their intent. So, and we certainly aren't. And the only one that is meeting over their intent is the student, which, yes, Mr. Connor.
I'll stand corrected on this, but nothing has ever prevented us from doing more. We chose to do more.
Speaking to the microphone, please.
Without even affecting the existing formula. If we choose to want to do 2 million more over the next number of years, we can do that voluntarily. If we feel it's in our best interest, taxpayers' best interest to do that, we can do that. Because I think that's fundamentally the question, isn't it? I mean, that's really the question. I mean, how you orchestrate it is how you orchestrate it. But in the end, the question is, do we wish to provide what Ryan identifies as the needed resource over the next few years to get them to a funding level of a certain amount. What's also interesting to me is that assessed value is not necessarily the best metric, because the assessed value in and of itself relates to population. It relates to net tax levy, what the tax levy is per capita, right? I mean, you could have like we have an over an $11 billion assessed value, but we get a lot of revenue. We get a lot of sales tax per capita, which helps to bring down our levy, but perhaps other counties don't receive as much sales tax revenue as we do. But I think the fundamental question is, do we want to make additional appropriations to the community college going forward? And I think I would agree with the treasurer. I think subject to the details of what that amount is and what the impact would be to our operating condition. I mean, I think that's in concept, that's something that I can support, subject to knowing what the end impact is going to be to the taxpayers and to our operating conditions. So, but I think that college is extremely important. I like to comment that it could be even more important as well. I think that's a good observation as well, an excellent observation. So again, I'd like to see the full plan, but I don't know that there's anything that prevents us from appropriating more should we wish to do so.
Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in full support of trying to find a way to make this happen. I agree we should wait for our treasurer to weigh in. I know our budget officers weighed in, and I appreciate that input. if you think about what the college is, it's more than just an education tool. It's a major component of our economic engine in this county. If I'm looking at the first page here, Ryan, it says alumni impact. There's 599 jobs of current alumni. Those alumni were more than likely residents and students in this county who've decided to get educated here, and they were able to stay here because the programs that the college offers is really tailored towards our needs. There's nursing, there's hospitality programs. I'm sure we can go on and on. There's entrepreneurial programs. Those are significant elements of having our economy survive and be strong going in the future. So I'm in total support of trying to make this happen. So, Mr. Treasurer, please let us know as soon as you can. Right? I'd like to be able to get this message to the college, get it budgeted, and move forward with this as soon as
That's the
possible.
next place. It needs to go to the budget, into the budget process. To see how our budget officer can work it into next year. I think that's the proper place for it to be next. My opinion, obviously.
Yeah, and just on the overall concept here, I'm an optimist, and I don't like to think this way, but I think that doing nothing and staying on the current trajectory, we got to do something, is what I'm trying to say. Doing nothing, staying on 2% per year, we're fooling ourselves if we think that that is going to not just make this college what it ought to be, but continue being what it currently is, because it's just going to further exacerbate that pressure on tuition. It's going to further drive people out of that institution. And I fear that over time, it'll suffocate the institution, and we won't have an asset anymore. So we got to do something, and we need to do it in a manner that is affordable to our co-sponsor and respectful of our co-sponsor. If you look at what we budgeted for next year and those two sponsor contributions expressed as a percentage of the valuation in both counties, it's 0.018% of Warren County's assessed value, and it's 0.029% of Washington County's assessed value. Washington County's has essentially double the burden right now that our taxpayers have. And that's why Chris and I thought it makes sense to slowly migrate more towards an assessed value format.
Supervisor Braylon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just speaking of the benefit to the region, I don't see why we wouldn't reach out to Saratoga and ask them for contributions as well. I know they pay chargebacks, but they have the Wilton campus in their community, and it's a great asset to them as well. And speaking of sales tax dollars, they are overflowing with sales tax dollars. So there's no harm in asking.
Well, there are legal mechanisms as to how that could occur. One of the chargebacks is how they do that. I don't know that they could make a donation, but they chargebacks, but not being a sponsor. We could ask Saratoga County to be a sponsor, but I can tell you from my experience in Saratoga County, that's not going to go over well. It wouldn't be the first time Saratoga County has been asked by Hudson Valley. Certainly, I don't know whether this college has ever asked, but Hudson Valley approached us and the door was slammed.
Supervisor Boyle. One more comment, Mr. Chairman. You know, we're facing an annual rate of inflation of 9%. 5.5% isn't such a bad deal. I know there's pressure from all sorts of different angles on our budget moving forward. But we need to reflect on all of this.
This wouldn't have any impact on next year's budget. It'd be 2 budgets from now.
Right, 24.
Right.
Yes.
I just want to respond to what Ryan said about Saratoga slamming the door in our face. I mean,
I slammed.
they have a campus in their county. Maybe we shut that campus. I mean, what are we doing?
No.
Why would we not ask?
Because one of the best things we have going for us financially is that campus. in
Right,
Saratoga.
their people go to that campus.
And having that campus there benefits us.
Right.
Right.
And it
We-
benefits them.
It is in our interest to attract students from Saratoga County because we have a chargeback to them that can be used for capital. And the way to get that chargeback increase is to increase the sponsor share.
Yes, Treasurer Swan.
to Supervisor Bramer's question, I think we are getting a substantial amount of money circling through the back door on that campus down there.
It's more than we pay,
Yes, so.
right?
Yeah, I.
It's more than we pay, right?
It never hurts to ask, but I don't want to kind of shoot the golden goose
Yeah.
here. Because I think we're kind of getting more money coming around the back door than what we are from the front.
Maybe we don't want to publicize too much of this.
Golden goose is just right.
Maybe a second campus?
Yes.
Sure.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to talk loud and be very brief. I've spoken to administrators and faculty up at the college, and one statistic I don't see in here is the what I believe is an increase in the number of individuals, not out of state, but out of the region, who are attending SUNY Adirondack, particularly coming up from New York City and certainly south of Albany. And a number of those individuals are staying here, like all of the people in this room. They've fallen in love with this region, and there's jobs to be had, and they want to stay here. I think that as well as that contributes to the economy at a time when it's difficult to fill slots of all kinds. We're training and educating people from New York City who want to move up here and participate in our economy. So that's a number that I don't see here, but I think it also could help balance some of the paybacks that we're paying to other colleges and those new tuitions from outside of the area.
Any other comments from anyone? Well, I think the main thing is that this is before you, and you need to analyze it and take time to think about it. It's definitely additional expense, but I think it's for a worthy cause, and I think it's probably doable. I mean, given everything else, who knows, So whether it may come back before this committee again or budget committee, one or the other. So it's out there anyways. And I want to thank Administrator Moore for thinking this through and working the numbers out. Looks like it's doable.
I'll follow up with the treasurer, and I will leave it in capable hands.
Thank you.
And my final item today is discussion regarding potential non-union salary adjustments. I did break out what the cost would be there. As reported last time, the annualized cost of the CSCA $2.75 per hour increase is about $1.5 million when you account for the revenue. The annualized cost of doing the same for our non-union employees is about half of that, $760,000. I broke out how that, how much of that is department heads and how much of that is just for our other employees, our non-union employees. There are some exclusions from this. I've excluded, I apologize, I've excluded everything that is related to members of the Board of Supervisors. I didn't know that you would want to vote to give yourselves a raise. And the coroners as well. And the uniformed positions in the Sheriff's Department, the non-civilian positions, if you will, in the Sheriff's Department, with the thought that those will go along with whatever the Sheriff's Department unions come to us with. We've got, I believe, an inquiry from the Alliance, which represents the communication officers, looking to negotiate something similar with the county. And there's also the corrections unit and the PBA. And I do not believe we've heard from either of those units yet, but I could be wrong. So that was the thought. I did discuss that with the sheriff and the undersheriff, and they agreed that we leave their non-civilian positions out of this. So that's what these costs represent. And I did give you a breakdown by position. of the cost of all of this. It's essentially $57.20 for everybody, annualized, and prorated down if they're part-time, according to the hours that they work. I've been speaking about annualized costs. The cost to this year would be $320,755. And if the committee is favorable to this, what we would need to do is a compensation schedule amendment, changing each individual salary. Which obviously we're not in a position to adopt today. We have to put it together and make sure that departments are good with it. We didn't make any mistakes. But if this committee is good with the concept, then we will initiate that process.
Yes, discussion. Supervisor Brandon.
Thank you. If we're not voting on it today, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. I would say I'm not opposed to the concept. I am happy that you removed all the Board of Supervisors. I would ask, though, that you also remove all of the electeds. I'm sorry, Treasurer. You're in there right now, and so is the county clerk, and I think that they should be removed.
If the
Not
DA
sure if the
can't be
sheriff
in
was
it.
in there or not, or the DA.
The DA can't be in it by law. The state law sets his salaries. So he's not in it. Just the treasurer and the county clerk.
Other discussion. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I won't repeat myself, what I said the last time during discussion. But in the end, what we did then and what we do here and what we do forward will need to apply to all of our employees. And so at some point in time, and I don't think our non-union should be isolated from what we're doing. So I would ask that that schedule be prepared and that appropriate legislation be drafted for our consideration at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And because I don't think we can or should do it retroactive to when the other one started. I'm not sure we can do that, but I think that as time goes by, the package is less for whoever we apply it to. So let's get on with it, and but be cognizant going forward that all of this has to be paid for.
Other. Yes.
Chairman, thanks. When I'm looking at this and I realize that this is a necessary expense that we're more than likely going to have to cover. But I wonder what the private sector has been doing through the pandemic and through this period of time. I know that the hospitality sector has increased entry-level wages significantly. But I'm worried about, well, I'm not worried about it, but I'm a little curious about what the private sector has done with their other employees, and whether they're waiting for something like annual reviews and what their policies are. So that we just understand where we're going with respect to the rest of, let's call it, significant employers in the county. I'm going to reach out, so we'll have some time to figure this out, but just one of the things that makes me curious to find out what everyone else is doing, because everyone else is still feeling the pinch of the inflation. So I'd like to make sure we're staying in touch. Just kind of thinking.
Do we need a motion to?
I would like some kind of consensus on the committee so that Tammy can get to work discussing these salaries with department heads and make sure that we didn't make mistakes, and we can prepare a detailed salary schedule adjustment for next time.
I say yes.
Is that a motion by Supervisor Conover? And a second by Supervisor Runyon. Further discussion, but we'll see what the.
I had half an hour. Make a couple of calls. I'm going to say yes.
I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, we'll draw this up and it'll come back to this. Thank you. That's my agenda.
Thank you. Pending items. I don't believe there's been any changes in any of the three items that are under personnel, SUNY Adirondack. So there is, on the back is section 5, positions authorized to be filled by the standing committees. And actually, there's only 2 this month. So last thing is privilege of the floor. Anyone in the room? Mr. Lehman, any comments on YouTube?
Hi, Chairman Thomas. Nothing on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. With that, a motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Wild, seconded by Supervisor Runyon.